Thank you for your practice tonight. And now we will continue with our discussion of what we've been talking about the past couple of weeks, which is, can we improve our levels of happiness with mindfulness practice? So before I start to talk about this week, just to recap on the main points of the last couple of weeks. And the first thing is that we discussed that money doesn't really bring you lasting happiness. We think that money will bring lots of happiness for a long time, but actually it brings a little happiness for a short time. And I think you have found that in your experience. But it's a very hard belief to let go of. We have been kind of brainwashed into thinking the more I have of money or of stuff, the happier I will be. And as you accumulate more money and more stuff, and you find that you're not having the same results in improving your happiness, you think, oh, maybe it's because I don't have enough, I need more. And then you're on this like treadmill that never stops. So it doesn't. It's the actual answer, and it's been shown by research into many situations. So we also overestimate how happy we will be when we encounter when we think we will get a good thing, and we also overestimate how unhappy we will be if we think about getting a bad thing. So we're very bad at predicting how happy or unhappy we will be. And when these things do occur, there's good situations, good things, and bad situations, they don't last as long as we think they do. The good times don't last as long as we think, and even the bad things, the bad times don't last as long as we think they do. And that's because of something that we have evolutionarily developed. It's called getting used to stuff. Or if you want the technical jargon for it, it's called hedonic adaptation. We just get used to our situations, as it were. When you were young, you probably, when I was young, there were certain things that we didn't have. For example, we didn't have a flushing toilet. It's one of those things, the toilet was out in the back and you had to go into a little place to do your stuff. And nothing wrong with that. Then, as we grew up, we moved to a new house and we had these fancy modern flushing toilets. And now when I go back I got used to that. When I go to a place where you have to, no flushing toilets, you start to feel a little strange, even though I grew up with that. So you get used to things, good things as well as bad things. And with our happiness, there has been a lot of research, because obviously many people are very interested in figuring out what makes us happy. And one of the kind of lead researchers in this area is called a professor named Sonia Lubomirsky. And she and her colleagues discovered that basically about 50% of our kind of happiness is inherent. It's like inherited, and there's a happiness set point that we can't really influence. Then our external circumstances, which is like how much money we have, the good situation, the career, house we live in, etc. It only has like a 10% impact, not very much on our levels of happiness. We would have thought much, much more. But the other thing that has a bigger impact, about 40% or so, is our intentional activity, what we choose to do and how we choose to think. So we can actually influence our levels of happiness by around up to 40% based on what we choose to do or the way that we choose to think, our thinking habits. So maybe that sounds a bit like, well, so what? But imagine, we're not talking about money, we're not talking about happiness here, but we're talking about money. So say if I came to you and said, you know, if you change the way, or you slightly change the way you do things and the way you think about things, you could increase your income by up to 40%. Would you be interested in kind of investigating and looking into that to finding out how to do it and why it happens? You know, I think most people would. You know, 40% is nothing to you know, ignore. So in the next few weeks, we're going to look at a number of practices that will actually help us improve our levels of happiness. So what we think about ourselves, our world, and other people are more important to our happiness than our external circumstances. So the intentional activity. So usually, and I'm like that too, when good things happen to us, usual reaction is, oh, yeah, that's okay, that's natural, you know, that's how it should be. But it's not, our first response is not gratefulness. Oh, I'm really grateful for that. It's just like, yeah, I deserve it, kind of thing. But if it's a bad thing that happens to us, something we don't like, then we think, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why do I deserve this, you know? But actually, it's two sides of the same coin. So we have a very different response to things, depending on whether they're positive or negative, you know. And when it's positive, we don't usually have this like gratefulness kind of response. So recently, I came across this video. It's been very widely shared, and it's a video about a singer called Nightbird, and she was competing on America's Got Talent. So when I first saw her, wow, I thought, really thin, but she had this amazing smile and incredible voice. This video has gone viral, so you've probably seen it. But anyway, she sang her own composition, which was a song about life called I'm Okay. And after she sang, the judges were very impressed. And then they found out, or we all found out, that she had cancer. And this was basically, she thought, the last year of her life. But her performance and, you know, her outlook was so incredible that this guy, Simon Cowell, one of the judges, gave her the golden buzzer, which is like an automatic entry into the live round of the competition later this year. So what really struck me was that at the end of the short video clip, what she said was, you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. So you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. And that really struck me. I mean, when she said that, you could see Simon Cowell was like, you know, wiping a tear away. I also was wiping a tear. And it was very moving. Then she said, I have a 2% chance of surviving. 2% is not 0%. 2% is something. And I wish people knew how amazing it is. And she was smiling and she said this. So she says, you know what, if it was me, or I think most people, 2% of surviving, I mean, most of us would be devastated, but she wasn't. She was like, 2%, that's something. It's not zero. So that's incredible, you know, that kind of outlook and this sense of being grateful for having an opportunity to even perform in the competition. And anyway, I looked more into it. It's very interesting. She's from a small town in the USA called Zanesville, Ohio. Population like 25,000. Small city, sorry, I should say. And her real name is Jane Marczewski. Marczewski? I hope I got it right. But anyway, she's a 2-time cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor. But unfortunately now the cancer has spread. So, just take a moment to put yourself into her shoes. If you were her and you had survived cancer once, now it's come back, and now you find that it's spread throughout your body, your spine, your organs, and then the doctors say to you, well, your chance of survival is 2%. How would you feel? How would you behave? I doubt that many of us would be like her, still chasing her dreams and having a very, very positive outlook on life. So it's really inspiring. If you want to check out her video, you can just go to YouTube and Nightbird, America's Got Talent. You'll probably come across it. So one very important lesson that Nightbird teaches us is this: don't wait. You can't wait until things are better before you decide to be happy. You can decide to be happy in this moment, but we just have to know how. So if we're open to learning and trying, then there are a number of things we can do. So I would like to share some of these practices with you tonight, as well as coming weeks. And these things I'm going to share with you, they're not just my idea. They're not something that somebody handed down from generations, but they're actually scientifically validated. And I think it's important because then it gives us a reassurance that these things have some empirical validation. They actually have been tested in the field and that they do actually work. So it's not a thing like what our great-great-great-great-great-grandfather or great-great-great-grand teachers handed it down to us, and then we simply believe it to be true. And even the Buddha said something about this. He said in the Kalama Sutra, don't believe things just because they're handed down through generations or are taught to you by the authority of your teachers. You need to test them out in your experience and see if they actually work for you. And if they do, adopt them. If they don't, then discard them. So he was very clear. And actually, that is kind of like adopting a scientific approach to things. So, what are the practices that can help? Okay, so the very first one, I think it may be already obvious to some of you, is the practice of gratefulness. And gratefulness or gratitude is a practice. It's not a condition that you have or a feeling. It's actually an active practice, which is kind of surprising, but also very encouraging. So often, gratefulness can mean many things to many people. It can be wonder or appreciation of something, looking at the bright side of a setback, appreciating the things you have, thanking someone in life, maybe thanking God or Bodhisattvas or Buddha, or counting your blessings. It's kind of not taking things for granted. And it is really kind of also present moment oriented. So most people think of gratefulness as just like saying thank you to someone when somebody does something nice for you or gives you a nice gift. But actually it's much, much more than that. So one professor, Robert Emmons, who teaches down at University of California in Davis, and his main subject is happiness, and what we can do to improve our happiness is that, gratefulness is gratefulness is a sense of, his definition is a sense of wonder, thankfulness, and appreciation for life. A felt sense of wonder, appreciation for life, and thankfulness. So I think that, pretty much sums it up. I mean, you can be grateful in the moments of your life. Like right now, you can be kind of grateful to be able to see and hear this talk, or be grateful when after this talk is over, you go and turn on the tap and clean water comes out. I've lived in a world where that was automatic. I've never had to worry about clean water or, not having it. But 2.2 billion people in this world don't have access to clean drinking water. That's 1 out of 3. So you can imagine if you were a person in that situation, you came to my situation, you'd be very grateful. But I don't, not. Well, I am to a certain extent, because when I first went on retreat in Korea, we had water rationing because the water came from the ground. It's artesian, not artesian, but a well, and there was only a limited supply. And actually, towards the end of the retreat, the last week or so, it kind of ran out, so we had no water. But we had to ration it 1 bath a week. You could only wash your clothes once a week, and you only restricted to 1 pail of water for brushing your teeth and washing your face every day. So yeah, that taught me how to appreciate water. But anyway, having this gratefulness actually is based on present moment, appreciating your life today, and what you have in your life today, and what actually made your life what it is today. So it's the little things, it doesn't have to be big things. Like I walk my dogs twice a day, morning and evening, and then some days the sky and the clouds are just incredible. The shapes are incredible, the colors are just kind of like almost otherworldly. There's such amazing colors. Then when I see that, somehow I feel this sense of gratefulness to be there, to be able to appreciate it. And then that also brings me a lot of joy. Just this simple thing. So there can be many, many simple things in your life which bring you joy and actually give you the opportunity to be grateful. But when I encounter this situation, this beautiful clouds and beautiful sky, I also see a lot of cars and motorbikes, just rushing along the main road that's next to us. And then I just think, wow, if you just had the chance to look up at the sky, maybe you would really see what I can see and be kind of grateful for that. Because it is really amazing. And these things don't last very long, In about 5 minutes, it's gone. Because the sun sets or it rises and the whole situation changes. So, practicing gratefulness is not something that we put on our to-do list. Something that we check off. It is actually a kind of approach to life and our practice And the more that you develop this practice of gratefulness, being thankful for things, being thankful to people, you actually get better at it, and it's easier. And you get a lot of actually joy from it. You start to notice stuff that you can really be very grateful for or very appreciative for. So it does start with being aware in the moment, in the present moment. So there it is again, the practice of being mindfully aware. And this being mindfully aware is something which will crop up quite often in our discussion. So people who are consistently grateful, what they've found that in the research is that they are happier, more energetic and more hopeful, and have more positive emotions. They also found that these people tend to be more spiritual, religious, more helpful, more empathetic, more forgiving, and less materialistic than those people who are not so grateful. So the other thing about gratefulness practice is that they found that the more the person is inclined to be grateful, the less likely he or she is to be depressed, anxious, lonely, envious, or neurotic. So that actually tends to suggest that there is some protective thing about gratefulness practice. So one of the ways that we can actually practice gratefulness that has been shown to be beneficial is journaling, gratitude journaling. So some of you probably heard this many times before, doing a gratitude journal, you go, oh, not again, you roll your eyes. But it does work. But you have to do it in a way that is most beneficial. It's not like, okay, I got to do this every night, and I put it on my list to do, and I just do it, and that's it. 5 items, write what I'm grateful for the last 24 hours. What the researchers found was that it's important to keep it alive and not make it into some kind of scheduled activity that you do. So too often is not that beneficial, and not often enough is also not. So what they found was it seemed like once a week. Again, Sonia Lubomitsky and her colleagues found that about once a week they got these people to do at various frequencies, etc., tested a lot of groups. But they found that the group that did it once a week on a Sunday night had the biggest impact on the happiness. So why not try it? So every Sunday, give yourself half an hour. First of all, get yourself a nice journal, something that you enjoy writing in, rather than one of these things, smartphone. A nice journal, and then on Sunday, maybe towards the end of the day or early evening, give yourself half an hour and just think back 5 things that you can be grateful for. And you can start each sentence with, this week I was grateful for. Then just write it down. So that is once a week thing. So it hopefully doesn't become boring, and it still keeps it fresh. And then, the thing about that is that this looking back at the positive things that happen is a practice that helps to also kind of rewire our brain. The neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. And our brain actually rewires itself according to our thinking habits. So the more that we think about positive or things that we can be grateful for, the more that we are inclined to think like that in future. So it's like kind of walking down a path in the forest. The more you walk on that path, the more you flatten the grass, the more you wear out the path, the clearer the path is, and the more likely you're going to follow that path whenever you go into the forest. So it's like that with our neurons in our brain. The more that we use that particular habit, the more that the neurons will fire together and they will wire together. So that's how developing a habit works. So doing a gratitude journal once a week, 5 things that you're grateful for over the past week, try it. And another practice that you can do straight away in your daily life is to really express your gratitude towards people whenever somebody does something nice to you or somebody gives you something nice. Just say it, thank you. Try that. Just be grateful for the things. And this is also part of our mindful awareness practice, because we have to be aware that people are doing something, are going out of their way to do something to help us. So once we become more aware of that, we are more attuned to people doing things to help us. So there is a lot of things that we can do to become grateful, but these two practices, I think are very, very worthwhile starting with. And if you want to explore gratefulness practice in more detail, there's this wonderful, wonderful Benedictine monk called Brother David Stendhal Rast, and he also practices Zen, and his main teaching is the practice of gratefulness. And he's a really great speaker, teacher, and you can check it out. And there's one really great video of him narrating, a very short video set to images and music by Louis Schwartzberg, and it's called A Good Day. And that is something I think well worth checking out. So 2 practices that you can do to help you boost your happiness. And maybe very quickly, I'll just tick off the ways that gratitude boosts happiness. First, grateful thinking promotes the savoring of life experiences. Expressing gratitude bolsters our self-worth and self-esteem. It helps us also cope with stress and trauma better, and it encourages us to behave in an ethical way. And then being grateful also helps us to build social bonds, strengthening our relationships and nurturing new ones. And then being grateful also tends to reduce our inclination to compare ourselves against others. This person is better than me, and I'm not so good. So being grateful actually does work against that. And practice of gratitude works against negative emotions also. So it may diminish feelings like anger, bitterness, that sort of thing. And it does really kind of diminish the negative emotions, because when you're grateful, it's hard to feel resentful or infuriated or guilty when you're feeling grateful for things. These kind of emotions don't go together. So finally, gratitude helps us to keep things fresh. It helps to reduce this getting used to stuff, like getting used to the good things. It helps to reduce hedonic adaptation. So those are the things that practicing gratefulness can help us do, and I hope you'll try them out. And if you have any questions or have any comments about how it goes for you, please, do do share them. We'll be very happy to see them and discuss them with you. So, gratitude journal and expressing gratitude in your daily life. So please try that. And if you're not sure how to do it, you can also try looking up the Greater Good Center, and that's University of California, I think. Can't remember exactly, but yeah, you can. They have also some tips on how to keep a gratitude journal. So that's all I have to say about gratefulness tonight and how it affects our happiness. It does improve it, and hope you'll join us next week where we'll continue our discussion on other practices which can improve our happiness. So please like us, share us, because it does help a lot. And take care. Hope to see you next time, and do stay safe and healthy. Thank you for watching and for your practice.